Hello, what I have here is the Gottlieb 1973 4-player Hot Shot pin machine. This is Gottlieb's version of a 4-player game, but there's also a 2-player game which was called the Big Shot. So this is a 4-player version. What's interesting, they made more of these than they did of the 2-player. The 2-player is a rare version of this one. As you can see, it's a beautiful shape. I bought this actually at the last minute. There was another one I was looking at, and then this one came for sale. This was owned by a family since the 80s. It's about 25 years of work, and I don't think it's been open that whole time. It's quite dirty. I've done some cleaning on it. The other thing is that this right bank of drop targets isn't dropping down, so it's not resetting, and then these other targets are sticking. So what I'm going to need to do is clean the playfield, tearing everything off. The playfield though itself is in pretty good shape, but everything's going to be be taken off. Because I have this problem with the drop targets, what I'm going to do is gut the whole cabinet out and go through all the switches and clean up things. And also it's been sitting for so long that, who knows exactly. It's probably dirty inside. I'll be able to clean the floor and that. But overall, this is a beautiful machine. And what's really funny is that this machine, I play the virtual version on Pinball Arcade on my notebook. And as soon as I saw this come on sale, I was like, oh, I want to get this. So I think this is just a classic. I love all the drop targets, and I think it's going to be just a great addition to my collection. And if you look, it's right next to my Sure Shot. So I got the two pinball games here to play, and so we're going to start out by tearing up the cabinet and clean it up, adjust all the switches. So what we're going to do is take the bottom board out, and we're going to take the playfield out. The playfield has only 2 jacks or 3 jacks you have to worry about. 2 of the jacks are back here in the back of the cabinet on the bottom board. You'll take those 2 off, and then there's 1 small plug that reaches up in the back and the head. And then to take the bottom board off, you have 3 plugs, which I'll show you in the next video. Then you disconnect that screw, you unscrew that screw, and then that screw. You will also need to disconnect your chime unit, also your power plug too, and you'll also have to unscrew your tilt mechanism here, and you'll have to disconnect your flipper jacks. It's not as hard as you think. Just make sure you take a lot of pictures when you do this so that you can remember exactly how everything goes together. So you'll actually unscrew the tilt mechanism off, and then you'll lay it in the board, and you'll take the board off. Taking the board off, it's not as hard as you think. Make sure that you think it through. If you need help to take the board out, go ahead and do that too, if need be. So in order to take the bottom board off, you have to disconnect these 3 plugs. These 3 plugs connect to the bottom board. Once these 3 plugs are taken off, just drop it back to the cabinet, and then you're going to disconnect 3 screws, and you'll be able to pull the whole bottom board out. Just be careful when you pull these J plugs. These are called J plugs. You just kind of evenly pull them out, evenly. You don't try to pull only on one side. You kind of wiggle them up back and forth and work them out. And then you disconnect like that, and then you can drop it to the bottom of the cabinet. So what I'm doing for my Hot Shot pinball machine, apparently this game hasn't been open for, I think, for many years, and there's only a few things that don't work, but because it hasn't been open for so long and there's so much dirt in here, what I'm going to do is clean the bottom board as much as I can, just all the debris. There's, clean up the contacts using alcohol, and then what I did is I take the screws out that hold all the relays, and I just can pull it back like that, which will then allow me access to actually the full board, and I'll do the same thing for this set of relays too. And then I'll turn the board over and clean the other side too. In the process of cleaning it, I'm going to also check all my switch adjustments, check the gaps, clean these as much as I can. And I use isopropyl alcohol. Don't ever use contact cleaner. Contact cleaner will light your board on fire. So don't ever use that. And I also will file the contacts too, just lightly, and I'll show you what I use for that. So the two things that I'll use is a switch adjustment tool, which is really cool. It works so well for adjusting your switches. I really like it, and the trick is adjust it to the base as close as you can. And then when I bought my Gottlieb Hot Shot, they had a nice little file in there, which is a very fine file, which is used to file your points on your relays, on your switches, and that's very cool too. The other thing too to do is tighten all the screws on these. They get loose over time, and that Bakelite tends to swell, so you want to make sure you tighten all your screws on your switches, your relays. So what I want to hone in on, if you look under here, I've taken these out, and you look how clean that this is. This all was just full of crud and crap. If you look over here, see all this crud, and I'm going to lift all these up too. It doesn't take anything but just unscrew a few screws. You can get underneath there, see how nice and clean that is. Wiped out all the crud, and then just screw everything back. It's a lot simpler than it looks. So I get to do my very first cabinet repair. If you see up in here, this cabinet is split right here. So, and this is another angle at this. If you look, it came apart here. So we're going to be able to glue this, and we're going to go get some clamps and start working on that. We're gluing the cabinet in where the edges have parted together. My father will use his carpentry expertise as we put the wood glue in. And then after that, we're going to clamp it. So what we did is we glued the cabinet. We put their clamps here to hold it in place on each side using wood so we don't damage the outside, and keeping space also between the cabinet and the clamps. So it goes all the way to the back. We'll let it sit overnight, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. And we also put staples, but we put it where the legs attach so you wouldn't see it, just to extra reinforce and hold it together to give us more strength. So we got the new block in, we reinforced it here, we clamped everything. It looks real good and strong, and now it's time to vacuum out the cabinet and then go from there. So I soaked the coin door in Evapo-Rust because there's quite a bit of corrosion behind it. I soaked it overnight, and there's still a bit of corrosion. I'm sure more could have come off, but I'm not so much concerned about this because I don't have the coin op in it and even set up. So I'm going to leave it as is. It's got cleaned up enough to hopefully slow any more rust or any damage like that. So now it's time to put it back in. Oh, on a funny note, I had to drill out the lock because there's no key. But then when I opened the door, there is a key. How did they get the key in there? I can't figure that out. Okay, so we got the bottom board in. We put the 3 screws, or what holds the bottom board in, and you're on the system here. All the switches have been adjusted and cleaned. I cleaned the score motor. Now I'm going to attach the tilt unit to the side. And I did take pictures of everything so that you remember exactly where goes where. These are for your flippers and for the chimer unit. So the next thing to do is to put everything back together, put the tilt mechanism up, we'll be done. Okay, so I put the bottom board back in, I screwed it down, I put the plate field back in. I just gave it a rough clean, I didn't give it a whole tear down. And what we want to do is hit start to see if everything will work okay, see if our score wheel resets. And everything is score wheel is resetting. It also looks like this left bank is now resetting also. So it's pulling the targets back up. And all that was done after I just went through and I adjusted the targets, and I adjusted all the switches and checked the gaps, and I cleaned all the contacts just briefly. It's important to note that when I went through the contacts and the switches, tightened all the screws. I can't say that enough. I got at least 1 to 2 turns, a minimum, on each and every one of the switches in this machine. Remember, the Bakelite tends to shrink, and the Bakelite are those little brown pieces that set your switches apart from each other. So we're going to play around with this machine, kind of see how it plays. Oh. What's going to be interesting too is I actually ordered new solenoids for the flippers that are a little bit hotter than the original, just so I can have more power to kick up to the targets. We'll play another ball here. This is the second ball. So the specials are lit because I dropped one bank. And so if I do hit that other, if I do hit that specials, that will be lit. If I do hit specials, I'll get a free game. It's already lit. Okay? We'll cycle through the balls. Alright, we're on the third ball here, which is still 1,000 points bonus. The banks are resetting, which is great. Okay, so this is kind of how it plays, the machine plays here. Once again, the Gottlieb 1973 Hot Shot pinball game. Great find for me. Going to be a great game in the collection, and it's going to sit right next to their little Sure Shot. So we have Hot Shot and Sure Shot sitting together, and just thanks for watching this video. It's a great machine. Good luck getting one, and if you do see one, buy one. Great machine.